Welcome to The Gravy Train, your express podcast for restaurant industry success. Listen to interviews with experts on menu management, marketing, and digital optimization to elevate your brand across delivery, kiosk, app, and web.
Hi, everybody. My name is Alex Graven. I'd like to welcome you to my podcast called The Gravy Train, not Gravy Train, because that's my name. Let's not get confused. And this is a podcast about all things hospitality, marketing, and tech, and all about the colorful people that work in the industry. And today I have with me Carey Benn, and Carey Benn is a serial entrepreneur. We had kind of like indirect contact when I was still working at KFC. We never spoke, but we were working with Flight. Flight was an integrator that did mainly POS integration for large restaurant chains, large restaurant operators. And you were the CEO there, if I'm not mistaken.
No, correct. I took over when the founders, Tom and Chris, left and we'd been acquired. I took over and took on the role of scaling Flight from kind of a UK-based operation into an international, really an international business, both in terms of staff and integrations. It was good. We had a really good time, but in the Just Eat group and at Flight, and we ended up with about 30. When I left, maybe 32,000 integrated restaurants. So quite a big integrator and quite a good growth story.
Yeah. So at the time I worked at KFC UK and Ireland, we had about 1,000 stores, and Flight was the first actually that did POS integration for us for Just Eat. I think Flight was bought as well by Just Eat Takeaway. We did Uber Eats and Deliveroo ourselves. But when I arrived at KFC, we already saw, hey, there's this shiny tool called Flight that has done it for us already. So that was great. So
is KFC still using NCR Compre? Because that still gives our engineers nightmares, by the way.
That is still the case. Yes.
Even the fact that I can remember it, it's seared into my brain, Alex.
Yes. The POS we love to hate. I mean, replacing it is quite a large operation, as you can imagine, with a large restaurant operator like KFC. There are initiatives coming from Yum Global to replace the POS with a POS of their own, which makes sense for such a large restaurant operator. But until then, it is NCR Compre indeed. Carey, a little bit more about yourself first. Maybe you can talk a little bit more about yourself, what you did prior to Flight.
No, of course. So you can't tell from the accent, Alex, I wasn't born in the UK. I was born in the Philippines, actually, and grew up going to international schools. And then my first role was head of a student organization in Australia called ISEC. So I was leading a group of students in Australia to conduct international exchanges. So bringing in graduates from overseas to work in Australia, and the same for Australian graduates out. As all good, programs like that, I was also a participant. So I went to Kenya to work for PricewaterhouseCoopers, which is a big accounting company. And then I started move from Kenya, PwC, to Malta to work for a mobile incubator startup. Got a real taste for kind of startup life and the joys of fundraising, the expectations of hypergrowth, which don't always work out, all those kind of good things, and also technology, because we're in mobile. I then moved to the UK, moved to a bigger market as a manager at Cadbury, so selling chocolate. And really loved Cadbury's, great company, but very quickly needed something which was smaller and faster. So I started a company providing vending machines to hospitality locations, but in this sense, leisure and actual hospitals, leisure centers, universities, and hotels. And we grew that to be the largest healthy vending provider in the UK and the largest provider of vending services to universities and hospitals, mainly through better consumer understanding. I think that's always been a key part of my career is what is the person buying? What is the consumer looking for? How do you make their lives easier? And so this in a time of terrible vending machine coffees, we moved straight to sort of fresh ground bean coffee, healthy snacks. We moved, changed locations and branding to make sure that we were appealing to consumer. Vending's a very old, and I think this also appeals to me, is old state industries where you can do something better has always been of interest. So built that from 2005 to 2010, sold it in 2010 to Autobar, which is the largest, at the time was the largest UK operator, who then got bought by Selecta, which was Europe's largest operator, and did my sort of subsequent lock-in and burnout period. Left there and started a mobile app called One For Me, so gifting in hospitality, so that I could send you a beer. I could say, hey, Alex, great to see you on the podcast. Have a bite to eat on me. So digital gifting and redemption in hospitality locations. That kind of led me to Flight, where I started as CRO and joined the guys here to try to commercialize what they'd built. We did that fairly successfully, sold it to Just Eat, and when the founders left, I became CEO. So I took over as kind of a scale-up CEO at that point. Did that for a couple of years, which takes up to 2021. And in 2021, and then they rolled the Flight business into Just Eat and turned it into rebranded to Jet Connect. And myself and a few of the senior team at that point, the roles didn't exist anymore in that organization to be running this separate entity. So took some time off. I went back to Australia, saw my family, took a rest. And then in 2022, we started Click&Mortar. So myself and Aidan Fraser, who's my technical CTO co-founder, started Click&Mortar. And this next one is, how do we... So Flight was an integration platform. This time around, we wanted to do something that was revenue management. So driving, how do you drive conversion? How do you help take the e-commerce playbook, which is all about knowing your guest, personalizing the offer, building loyalty over time. How do you apply that to hospitality? And in hospitality, it's really difficult because the systems are, systems are legacy, data is siloed. It's also difficult because you have so many different eating occasions, and you have so many different, even in one consumer, you have maybe date night, and you have friends, and you have family, you have lunch, you have work lunch, you have family lunch, you have eating at home alone. Anyway, so there's lots of complexity.
It's almost, if I may intervene, it's almost like you're different personas. So we use personas a lot in marketing, but what you're actually saying is that you can adopt different personas in different contexts and different time. I want to dive deeper into that, but I want to backtrack a little bit on what you summarized before, because I think it's really interesting that, first of all, what makes me really curious is hospitality keeps coming back. Why?
I like things I can understand. And so I am an eater, I am a drinker. I love friends and family in a both at home, but especially an out of home environment. And so I've always been attracted, I think, to things that I can see and touch and understand. Mm-hmm. And so it's ironic that we're building tech for that, but I get the environment. It's a very big environment, and because it's quite traditional, there's a huge opportunity for growth. So if you think big opportunity for growth, very large, and something that you can see and understand, those are all things that for me are pretty appealing.
Right. So the fact that it's tangible is something that attracts you. And
we're participants. I can go, what do I like on a website? What do I like when I walk in the door? What's my drivers? I can contribute anecdotal. Whereas with an integration platform, for example, so that when we're at Flight, it's much more intangible. It was a brilliant company and journey we're on, but it's much harder to say, do I like or not like this type of integration?
Yeah.
Whereas when you're a consumer, we can all talk about it. I can talk to any friend and say, hey, we're doing this thing in restaurants, and they go, oh, wow, that's interesting.
Yeah. You said earlier you have young kids. Try to explain to them that you're doing something in the back end, right? You're doing something cloud native, but as soon as you're sitting at one of their favorite restaurants, you say, you see that over there, that offer over there. That's what that helped create. And
they're sure that I can do it all from my phone, Alex. They're like, what does Daddy do? Daddy spends his time on his phone, or he's on his computer.
Yes. Like what we said during COVID as well, or the meme during COVID was that a lot of kids in school were being asked, so what is it that your parents do? And say, well, they sit and they talk to a laptop all day. That's basically that was our life. Talking about COVID, was that the time that you were in Australia?
No, so I was here. I was here, but we were remote. So we
Right.
no. So I became CEO of Flight actually just before COVID. So I kind of moved from being I took over as CEO in December of 2019, and then 3 months later, suddenly I was the CEO of a 100-person remote organization.
Right.
8 countries. That was interesting.
Your timing was impeccable. You couldn't. You probably, if somebody could have told you in December 2019 that you had 2 months to get your act together, because then, all hell breaks loose. That would have been nice. Yeah.
Would have been. Although I guess we were because food delivery went through the roof in COVID, right? That was one of the wild success stories. So we were busy. We tried to give support to staff who. So we had people who were in central London in apartments and stuff like that. That's not a lot of fun. We had quite a social culture, and so suddenly you're not seeing anybody. So we found ways. We did remote. We did. A magician came. We had a comedian come. We did games. We did cocktail master classes. We did everything we could to try to keep people sane and focused on the business goals, but very much because if you need time, take time. If you've got kids, like for the first 3 months, we just said to people with parents, if you've got to do schooling,
yes,
it's fine. It is what it is. We'll come through. We'll be okay.
Yeah.
Funny times.
I've had a similar experience because I joined KFC January 2020, and we were building the POS integration. So Flight was already there, and we were building for Uber Eats and Deliveroo. And all of a sudden, that became front center, super important to deliver as quickly as possible. So So yeah, it was a frenzy. But yeah, delivery kept a lot of restaurants alive, and in that sense it's good. I think what was very interesting is that it was clear that in the whole sales mix, delivery exploded and was the main factor, and we've seen that delivery of course went down, but it didn't go down that much. If you compare it in the whole sales mix, it probably doubled from where it was before. Are there any things that you noticed that COVID has done to the industry that you're now seeing?
Yeah, I think there's a few things. In many ways, it drove some technical adoption because suddenly there was mandated you must have order at table. With the social distancing, even when we went back into restaurants, there was a big push into using technology to facilitate social distancing. And so I think Flight originally started off, and we'd built order at table for GBK, and we'd built pay at table for Oaxaca. We rolled out pay at table to Pizza Express and to Mitchell & Butlers, and so we were one of the very early proponents of technology in the restaurant before we really scaled as an integrator. And so, but it wasn't until COVID that I saw that stuff take off, and suddenly everybody had pay at table, and every tech supplier in the first 3 months became an order at table supplier. Even Deliveroo built was it order at table or click and collect? I think order at table in COVID, because they said, actually, how can we help restaurants? And so I think COVID did spur some technological advancements or adoption that I hadn't seen before. I think, as you say, it drove delivery, and that people who wouldn't have previously, both in terms of breadth of people ordering and frequency, ordering from delivery. But I think it also drove a lot of people out of business. I mean, I don't know the stats Europe-wide, but I know in the UK, especially the independent sector, was hard hit. That if you couldn't make it, and as you know with delivery, the margins aren't there, and so if the mix isn't right, and you're suddenly too reliant on delivery, how do you stay afloat? So I think there's been quite a few impacts, really.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think it also was a huge wake-up call for the industry, in the sense that that tech and marketing tech is essential. It was important before, but it all of a sudden became like, oh, this is really, if this hits again, we need to be ready. We need to be able to switch channels on and off, and also maximize profitability as much as we can, because of course the channel itself is not that profitable from itself.
No, I mean, that's just one that I know you wanted to talk about, but what are your kind of you must have an interesting view on, because you had all those delivery providers on, and then KFC has decided to also open its own channel.
Yeah.
Where do you see that? Where do you see that going in terms of other? That was quite groundbreaking when I saw that news. Where do you think that goes in terms of the aggregators and own channel?
Yeah. So first of all, I have to say that I don't work for KFC anymore.
No, I know.
Since 9 months, they are a customer of Presto. We do quite a bit of analytics for them on the menu front. But from my own memory, from what I recall, was that the push for own channel are mainly two factors, and one is owning the customer, whereas through the aggregators you don't own the customer. You are just in a way the food provider on their platform. That's one. The second, and that is related to that, is owning your data, which is of course important for personalization, loyalty, to drive loyalty. In short, I think to basically drive the customer long-term value. And then I think there's a third component as well, and that is just margin. Especially when you're a restaurant with at scale, it pays to have your own channel.
Yeah, I think it's interesting what you said a minute ago in terms of the mix, and that's what it comes down to, isn't it? You want maybe you drive discovery through the aggregators, but then you want repeat purchase through your own channels. Yeah. And I was fascinated to see, because we used to do a lot of work with Nando's, and I think they were the first operator to, as far as I've been told, not from someone at Nando's, was to get Deliveroo to share data, guest data. And so I think on the sign-up terms when you order from Nando's, there's some bespoke Nando's deal that to get Nando's on that platform, they said we'll share data. Now that's amazing to me. That's wow. And also, I think they've agreed to let.
Are you surprised? Are you surprised that an aggregator? Yeah.
Amazed because what I don't. So I think I'm always on the side of operators. I feel like they should have opened it up in the first place. But if you open it to one, how do you say no to Pizza Express? How do you say no to the next person who comes along? And so it's been interesting seeing. So I was very surprised. But how do you say no? But then also, there's always been a resistance to offer restaurants loyalty programs on the platforms. They've always said, no, join, Deliveroo Plus or whatever, or Uber Eats One or whatever the programs are. And yet, from a consumer point of view, yes, I'm ordering from Deliveroo, but I am ordering from Nando's.
Yeah.
So I want my chilies.
Yes.
I want my loyalty card. Why can't I? And so I don't think the consumer understands the aggregator versus own channel play. They go, well, it's of course I'm paying Deliveroo, but you're the driver and the marketplace, but it's Nando's I'm buying from, and it's their food I want. It's not your food. So I don't think that's well understood by consumers.
In a way, I think a good metaphor is that you go into a mall and Deliveroo Eats and Just Eat is the mall basically, but you still buy from the vendor. So why can't you get your loyalty points? Yeah,
exactly. If I'm a Nike customer, I want to be able to, or an Apple customer, I want to be able to get the Apple guarantee. I want to be able to get the Apple Care in the store. I don't want to have to say, "Hey, mall owner, can you please? I want to join your insurance program for my Apple products." Anyway.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense.
I think it's really interesting though, because in the hospitality space, in no other space that I know has an aggregator come along and been able to be so brutal about not sharing data and not doing loyalty. If you think back to the days of, say, well, they're still around, but OpenTable, Bookatable, and those guys, they all share the data. They all say, hey, Mr. Restaurant, it's your guest. And therefore, if somebody books a table with you, we'll give you their email details. Of course, you can contact them because they're experiencing your brand. So I think the food aggregators are the first ones that I've seen stop. Like Skyscanner doesn't stop you from interacting with BA or Thai or whoever you interact with, right? So it's a really anomalous situation with the food aggregators.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. Indeed, if you compare to the airline industry, indeed, if you book through Skyscanner or Booking.com, I think maybe you can compare it to Amazon or Alibaba, where you basically have access to a lot of merchants via one platform, and I think that the risk as well is apart from the fact that as a large restaurant operator, you are losing direct touch with your consumer, which you then need to work really hard at to win back with loyalty and your own app and everything, is perhaps as well that the data can be used against you.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's where we can talk a little bit more about your current venture, about the Click&Mortar. But platforms like Uber Eats, Deliveroo, and Just Eat, they have so much data that they, with their Deliveroo editions or any other thing, they could offer certain cuisines in certain areas that they believe are underserved. So
yeah, it's a good question. I'm surprised it hasn't gone further, put it that way.
Yeah.
In that, but I guess you can't be everything, and it comes back to that old argument about kind of vertical integration.
Is it the power of brand that it hasn't gone this far?
Yeah, maybe so. I mean, we have seen people like the Lean Kitchen Network, Peckwater Brands. There's a few of these guys who've created sort of the virtual brand Ghost Kitchen model, and Cloud Kitchens, the Trupsclonic back guys. They have supported a load of virtual brands or brands that don't exist on the high street. So there's probably a role. Like I think there is a role to play. And so if you could pick cuisines where there's not a strong brand leader, I don't think there's any point creating KFC or McDonald's knockoff or Nando's knockoff, because they're so strong and they're really the linchpins of the platform. And so I don't think you're going to eat away at them too much. But at other independents or other unknown, because there's a lot, I mean, on some of those platforms, there's a predominance of unknown independents. And so is a virtual independent any worse than a physical independent? I'm not sure. So I am surprised that they haven't driven it further. Albeit I think that some of them have, Uber Eats particularly, I think has kind of decided we're a logistics company, not a food manufacturer. Mm. So of course we have the data, but do we want to make food? So I think there's probably a strategic piece there as well.
Yeah, makes sense. Then you would expect that maybe they would do something with the data in the sense that you can buy certain services around it. Yeah,
I think, yeah. I mean, I've always been baffled by the lack of data use, because you could buy services, you could, based on my eating habits, you really should know what I need and when.
Yeah.
Right. You know, if you're tapping into what my occasions are, building a profile, you should be able to be very relevant to me. But I look at the advertising I get, I look at when I open the app, I look at the emails, very generic.
Yeah. There's still a lot of room for improvement.
Indeed, and they're not creating a. So you think about Amazon or even Salesforce in a completely different industry. They've created an ecosystem of people around them that work on their platforms. And so I mean, Amazon's created entire industries. I don't really see that the food aggregators have done that. Whereas you would have thought, using the data, there could have been spin-off businesses or other businesses built on top of their either infrastructure or data that would have been really valuable in their ecosystem. But we haven't seen a lot of that either, I don't think.
Yeah. So bringing this to Click&Mortar, your current venture, what is kind of like the biggest value proposition that you bring to restaurant operators?
Yeah. So I think it's the knowing your guest and being able to convert them effectively. So know who's your guest. Are they loyal? Are they not loyal? What do they like? What do they not like? And then having an execution method to reach them. Whether if they're on your website, what do you show them? Both in terms of like text, imagery, personalization. Do you give them an offer? Have you seen them 3 times this week? Do you give them extra content? Do you say, do you know what? There's some content that you're looking for around how we make our food, or how we have you seen the delivery process? So the ability to start to personalize that journey, because I think in the normal world, you've got your POS, which has your transaction data, your CRM, which has your email and communication data, your website, which has GA data. You can't connect them up. And so you come and visit and order the steak, but next time you're coming out and say, Alex, how was it? Or would you like the same table? I give you the same message I've given every other person on my email database. And when you land on the website, until you log in, I don't know you. But the technology all exists to make every digital journey fairly visible, so that when you land, even before you logged in, I should be saying, hey, Alex, you accepted cookies last time you were here. And so because I've got those cookies, I'm going to personalize your experience. Would you like that? You could say no. This isn't taking guests and forcing them down a path of personalization or data retention, but it's saying, hey, if you do these, it's getting down the funnel to say, come and see us. Now sign up. Now join our loyalty program or some form of club. And then we convert, and then we talk about how that was, and we convert again, and we learn more about you, and that's a virtuous circle of adding data. And then we say, hey, Alex, I can see from the last time you came, do you like sports? You like football? Which one's your team? I like Tottenham. Perfect. I don't like football. I watch whatever. All of these pieces is a really interesting move into zero-party data, where we're starting to say, if there's a value exchange, guests will willingly hand over more about themselves in order to gain more benefit in their experience. None of us hospitality. None of us want.
So what do you mean with zero-party data? Maybe you can explain the different definitions there.
Of course. Yeah, so zero-party data is data that you share with me, which I wouldn't know from your transaction. So first-party data is data that I, as a restaurant operator, have because you made a table reservation. So I know you're Alex. I know you brought 3 people Friday night, 6:00 at this restaurant. That's first-party data. That's mine.
Right.
Because you gave it to me as part of a transaction. And if you then made a purchase and you bought 2 steaks, 2 beers, two chips, that's first-party data. That's my data. But then I say, Alex, what's your favorite red wine? Because next time you come, I want to treat you. And you tell me, my favorite red wine is a French Merlot. Fine. Yeah. That's zero-party data, because that is data that you have willingly given to me about you that I can combine with what I know about you from the transaction. And so suddenly I'm understanding you. So zero-party data is when you say, you give me some information, how old you are, why you're coming, the occasion. You might say, I'm coming for my birthday, Carey. Can you make it special? Perfect. That's zero-party data that you're willingly giving to me, which is not part of the transaction.
Right. I see.
That makes sense.
Yeah, makes absolute sense. And then, is there a difference in what is more valuable?
I think they're both valuable. So I think the transaction data, I wouldn't want one without the other. I wouldn't want I wouldn't want to know that you like red wine and you like Arsenal. I'm just making up whatever. I wouldn't want to know.
Playing right now as we speak. So
I didn't know that.
If you like Arsenal, we might have to end the call. But
it's not that. I just coming from Australia, I don't have a huge affinity with any Premier League team. So knowing that without also knowing where you transact, what you buy, when you came, your frequency doesn't really help me, because knowing that you're a wine-loving Arsenal fan, but you've never come to our restaurant, how am I going to activate you? How am I going to prompt you? Say, Alex, I want you to come twice a year, not once a year. So, to me, the basics are compiling the first-party data. Make sure you got a single view of the customer, so that I know who you are, Alex, and I understand how many times you visited us, and I can start to think about what are my predictions of what you're going to like, not like, your occasions, and then we start to ask for the zero-party data as a value exchange to say, if I learn more about you, I can improve your experience. And over time, you then start going, I'm getting the VIP table. I like that, Carey. Yeah. I was asked whether I wanted my favorite cocktail. I was asked, you can start to say, consumers can start to say, I'm comfortable with this because I know that it improves my experience. And I think that's a great value exchange.
Yeah, I can see this is hugely valuable. If you know these kind of details about your customer, that's massive, because you can do something with it. Question, of course, is how do you harvest it, collect it in a non-intrusive, in a friendly manner, and also is there a difference? Well, obviously there's a difference between digital and in store. But have you got cases for that or strategies or?
Yeah, so we haven't done much on physical. We've stuck already to digital. And so our first party data collection has only really been as part of a value exchange. And by value exchange, I mean, you'd like to take part in our birthday offer, which is have a meal for you and a meal for your partner or friend that you bring. Tell us the occasion. So it's first party data is really easy to collect at the top of the funnel, particularly. When I say top of the funnel, I mean somebody who is just starting their conversion journey with a value exchange, with some sort of offer or an incentive. Further down that funnel, what we're seeing is it's easier to collect zero party data because there's more trust and that person is more invested in your brand. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, we've just had a fantastic Black Friday campaign around gift cards, actually. And we, because everything we do, we're trying to use the data to understand how do you drive more conversions? How do you engage guests? And so we split the guests into segments, and we said, guests we haven't seen for a while, guests who we see very infrequently, guests who we see semi-frequently, guests who are very, very frequent guests. And I know it won't surprise you, but the guests who bought gift cards for family and friends were very frequent guests. Mm-hmm. So they're heavily invested. They love the brand. They're engaged. And therefore are willing to buy a gift card. How funny! But the further down the frequency list you went, it was less probabilistic that somebody would buy a gift card. And in that process, we're asking them for zero party data to say, is this for you or is this for somebody else? What's the occasion? Would you like to send a message? And why are you buying the gift card? And so again, because we were picking out audience of people who were loyal to the brand, and then we're saying to them, if you let us know some more information, we can personalize the gift that we send. People really give it. So I think it's always it's what's the value exchange and where in the funnel, how loyal are you to that brand?
Yeah, I see. And when you ran that particular campaign, are you noticing like an uptake in people buying more of those gift cards, or what are the metrics that you kind of like?
Yeah, so we were tracking a whole bunch of metrics, but the primary ones was cost to acquire from social. So we were seeing if we could identify guests, reach them in social channels, because email, is super powerful and the cheapest channel, but how do you have a channel mix of talking to you where it could be on social, it could be on email, it could be on text, it could be on whatever. And so we were tracking how many of them could we find, how many could we match in social from our database, what was the cost to acquire them, to get them come to the landing page to say, would you like to buy a gift card, and then how many were converted, and the return on ad spend. So how much did it cost to convert? And this was, so our rough cost to convert was 10%. So 10p in the pound. So if a group of guests were buying £1,000 worth of gift cards, it was £100 cost to acquire those customers from social channels. So it was those are kind of the key metrics in that we were tracking.
Right. And how do you track all that information? Have you built a system for that, or do you integrate with some third-party providers, or?
Yep. So we've built our own. So we integrate with the gift card provider of the restaurant, and so that they're the people who issue. So we're not a gift card issuer. They issue the gift card, the unique code that has the stored value. We integrate with Stripe for our payment processing.
Yeah.
We integrate with a company called Eagle Eye for our voucher issuance, if we're issuing discounts. In this case, we integrated with Facebook, and we integrated with the guest database, so that we're automating a group of audiences. That's so the script is running to generate the list of people we want to target. Integrate with Facebook. That's a custom audience. We then drive social spends. We paid advertising to get those guests to convert. We use the UTM, the tracking tag, the link click effectively.
Yep.
To identify which campaign they came from, which then says what incentive they get, and then in our own systems, so it's our landing page and it's our database that then captures who the guest was, their zero-party data, their first-party data, their spend, the Stripe confirmation, the Savvy gift card issuance confirmation, etc. So we always integrate quite a lot anyway, because we don't want to have a standalone system, but we've built a lot of the tech to know the guest and to be able to then track how much do we spend to acquire, how much do they spend, do they come back again? Because I guess the magic of our model is know the guest, predict what they're going to do next, engage them, pull them down the funnel. So the key to our technology is the knowing your guest piece and being able to track everything they do so that we can personalize their experience.
Right. And you use retargeting as well, I suppose?
Yeah.
Or And how does it, this sounds like it's kind of like your system and you manage it end to end for the restaurant operator. But how then do you deal with the situation that the restaurant operator already has a lot of data and is probably interested in the data that you build up as well? Is there some sort of
we tend to be effectively working with their data because they already have years of data,
right?
And then extra data that we're bringing in. So we're working in their data. We are abstracting or anonymizing their data to bring it into our systems, to work on our environment on the models. We're bringing in new data. We pass them that data. It's always restaurants' data. We're not trying to create a different data source that the restaurant can't use.
Right.
They have their own activities, their own CRM activities, their own loyalty stamp cards. That information needs to go back into that place against the guest, but we also have it to use for our modeling and for our prediction of how to convert the guest again. So yes, we're building in our systems, but we're not trying to take the data away from the restaurant. We never own the data. We're the processor, not controller. So it's always the restaurant's data, and it's always us managing it on their behalf effectively, and building out systems that allow us to apply intelligence to it.
So if I understand you correctly, there's kind of like a double benefit for an operator to work with you. One is transactions. So there is some sort of actionable result, or there's a result of the campaign, like for example more gift cards or whatever the goal is. And the second thing is, which is more long term, is the enrichment of the customer profile.
So you've actually spot on, Alex. And I always think very top line, going to make you more money. That's the promise.
Yeah.
In that process, we're going to give you complete transparency on your guest conversion. Where are they converting? Where are they not? What's working? What's not? So that you marketing is really hard to identify good ROI, good guest conversion metrics. So we give you that transparency, and we give you more the guest augmentation and the richness around the guest data for you to then do other things with outside of what we're doing. So you've got that spot on.
Right. Awesome. And with all the developments that are going on right now, I kind of like summarize 2023 as the year that AI became mainstream. It was, of course, AI is not something new. We've been having it, but it's really blown up, and everybody, including your neighbor, your uncle, your grocery delivery guy, everyone's using ChatGPT. So nothing new there. What's kind of like the main theme for 2024, you think? From a tech point of view, and then specifically for restaurants and hospitality?
I think broader tech, it's going to be data usage. So I think AI has amazing potential, but I think it's so difficult to use for most industries at the moment because the data in their industry isn't structured in a way that AI can access it, use it. How do you get it into the AI?
Yeah,
you can use we use the OpenAI APIs, but it'll only give you back things to. You have to build a model, so you have to have a bunch of engineers even to be able to use any of these AI tools. So if 2023 is the year of AI explosion, yes, but I think 2024 will be the use of what people go, oh no, I need to find a way to get all my data together, structure it, and then decide what I want to use AI for. And maybe 2025 will be the year that AI generates enormous commercial benefit.
Yes. Yeah.
And so and hospitality is kind of the same. Like I see the same kind of trends where we're all dabbling, but it's the rails aren't built to apply AI to execute recommendations. The data is not in a place where you can easily apply AI to it. And I think people are recognizing more and more that the number one step is a data roadmap. Get your data in one place, make it usable, make it structured, and then people can do clever things with it. That's kind of where my head's at.
And be careful who you share it with.
Yeah. And what are the rules of sharing, right? What are they doing with it? And what are they combining it with? And there's been a rise, actually, that's a really good point, Alex. There's been a rise of these sort of data clean rooms saying, we'll take care of all of that your data won't be shared with the wrong people, not the wrong people, but it won't leak. And that we're going to augment your data with third-party data, but in a way that's safe. So I think that's another trend here that we're looking at to say, so if 2024 is all about data, get my data structured, but then what are the data am I missing and where can I get it? How do I combine it? And your point is so valid. Who do I share it with? How do I share it? How do we combine it in the ways we want, but in a way that's safe? I think that's a really, really, really valid point.
Yeah. How can data become a competitive, provide me with a competitive edge and protect my business and my brand? And I think those are the questions that are very much on people's minds within the industry for 2024. Absolutely. I just thought when you talked earlier about personalization and zero-party data, I learned something new on this podcast. Is that I have a son who is my eldest son. He is an absolute animal lover, and we haven't taught this to him. He came into this world as an absolute animal lover, and he has problems with people eating animals, with people eating meat. We never pushed him that way. He's that much of an animal lover. So something like animal cruelty is a big thing for him. And the boy is only 10 years old. So if a restaurant, like if we, for example, in London would go to a Pizza Express and they would know how important this is for them, and they would point out that these particular pizzas, no animals got hurt, or if there is ham on it, it's from some sort of sustainable farm or animal-friendly label or whatsoever. That is massive. That is such a conversion sticking point. I don't know whether that's the good word, but that is that's the magic. If you capture that in your system somehow, if you manage to collect that kind of data about your customers.
No, Greg, I think Alex is a perfect example, and it's that kind of thing that says, what do you care about? And I know, come back to your point earlier about personas and occasions, I know for me with the family, I don't want your 20% off. That's not what's driving me to come. I want an early table, I want fast service, I want a quiet table, and I want to get out. Because our kids are 9, 6, and 4.
Yeah.
And so we're not there until 10 o'clock at night. We don't want a free bottle of Prosecco. And we don't even want kids eat for free or a family deal. We just want
a French Merlot, maybe a French Merlot.
Maybe. Probably that's fair. But we just want to know that we're not going to disturb people. We can get in, get served, get out. Right on occasions if we're going out in for lunch or in the evening. But there's nowhere I can put that preference. I can't put that anywhere. Where can I put it? That's what I'm looking for.
And you would love to share that because if they are responsive to it and they are going to do something with that knowledge, you would be a happier customer.
Exactly that. And so I think there's quite a few examples where you think, what would you like? What's something you'd like to share that would make your experience better? But at the moment, there's nowhere to share it. And there's nowhere for the frontline staff to receive it. And so joining those two things up and allowing the data to flow from guest into service would be super important.
So let's say that you are that we're talking about Pizza Express and you are a member of their loyalty program. I mean, I'm not, so I don't know. But is there nowhere that you can indicate that this is important for you on a Friday night? Forget about the jazz music. I just want fast service, clean table, and quick checkout.
I don't think so. Because it's not. Brands tend to do it through surveys rather than through. So rather than a one question at a time so that I can get to know you, it tends to be, can you answer a 10-minute survey, or a Kantar panel, or we're still in the world of big segments. So that's a family segment. That's a couple segment. That's a poor segment. That's a rich segment. So big personas, and that big segment, that big persona, gets the same thing. Yeah. But as we discussed earlier, I'm in all of those segments at one time or the other.
Yeah.
On Friday last week, I was seeing friends I've known for 20 years, and I was in a very different segment with those 8 guys than I am with my family, or that I am when Sarah, my wife, and I go out for dinner together.
Yeah.
So
all of a sudden, you're a lot younger. Yeah.
exactly. A lot sillier. A lot more French Merlot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But no. But this is the thing.
I think that's a very, very good point. And I think maybe here AI could play a role as well, because until now, we've not been able to basically translate personalized preferences and wishes into actionable, something actionable for the front end staff. But AI can play a role here, because if you leave in your loyalty program, if you leave that comment and say, hey, I'm coming usually on Thursday or Friday nights with my family, we want this. This is really important for us. Even though that doesn't fit in a bucket of like, oh, this is a an urban professional with a family, so we need to give him this or that bottle of Prosecco. The AI can actually make a recommendation to the front end staff based on it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and that's exactly it. Because even if they saw that same person again, but it was Tuesday lunch at a different location, the AI can say, it's Tuesday, it's lunch, it's in a city location, which is different from their old one. It's probably not a family dinner, it's probably a work lunch. And you might be wrong half the time, but if you're right half the time, and you can then append that file to say, we now know you're a work lunch eater.
Yeah.
Right. That's really interesting. And it's one thing that even now AI can do is it can.
And you order a spicy pizza.
Exactly.
Because you're going back in the office and you're going to have meetings. We're going to give you some nice branded mints.
Yeah, exactly.
Something like that.
That transforms the experience, right? So suddenly you can start to predict what's the occasion, what do I know about you, crunch that data, and therefore try to just personalize the experience. And even talking about those big segments we have now, AI can, even if we don't go straight to one-to-one personalization, so even if we go from a segment of 200,000 to a segment of 10,000, that would be useful. Because AI can take the segment of 200,000 and create 50 different iterations or versions of a piece of content, send it to the 200,000, look at the responses, and then start to cut it up into smaller and smaller groups. And over time, you build a comprehensive sort of view of the customer, combining your first-party data, that zero-party data, and then you have to start training the AI to go, now what to do about it? What execution works?
Yeah.
The meat work? Does the nice table work? So I think we're a long way from Nirvana here, Alex, but there's some fun things. There's fun things to think about that are currently available in other industries that we can apply to hospitality that I think would work really well.
Yeah. So it sounds as well that as long as we don't have a COVID 2024 or something else that is gonna paralyze the industry again, from the point of view of in-store, if we have that data and those preferences, especially that zero-party data, if you have that, you can really make unforgettable experiences or create unforgettable experiences in restaurant.
Yeah, I think so, and I think it allows us to remove some pinch points, remove some pain points, and at least have a stab at guessing what you want and making it better, which at the moment we're unable to do. So I think even that would be a big leap forward. And if you could do that, you could increase table turn, you could reduce waste. You could there's a lot of knock-on effects to being able to turn more tables, get people. Because imagine if you knew I was susceptible to an early dinner, don't offer me it with the family. Don't offer me a Friday incentive to come in, but maybe say an incentive to come in at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock. You know, that there's a lot. So even when we think about optimization of staffing and inventory, table inventory, suddenly if I can personalize who I'm offering what to, I stop offering 20% off and I start saying, come early.
Yeah.
Free starter if you come at a time when I'm not busy. And so, whereas at the moment we're not busy in January, everybody gets 40% off. But actually, half those people don't need 40% off. Half those people need something else. And, all of those things suddenly lead to profitability, which leads to more sustainability in terms of restaurant finances. So I think there's a lot. Personalization doesn't just give a great guest experience. It also gives hospitality operators a way to thrive.
Yeah. So I think that answers a little bit of the question of what's ahead in 2024, because AI, of course, is like a more enabling technology, but it's truly about personalization. And we've been talking about this for years now, but it seems that we're getting closer and closer to unlocking some interesting use cases there.
Yeah, I think so. One of the things we've found, because we're working with some enterprise merchants who have a lot of data, is that we're one of the first to be using the data. So we're one of the first to have the technology to take the data and apply a recommendation. And so suddenly we're accelerating their use of data because we're using it. We say, well, we need more of that and less of that, and we're missing some of this, and we need access to it in real time. Like, it's changing how they think about data, because previously it was data is valuable. Now data turns into money, becomes a whole different story.
Yeah, it used to be a pipe dream for a long time. Like, let's collect everything that we have, because at some point in time we'll do something with it. And I think that's what I like about what you are offering. You're saying from day one, when you engage in a campaign, we're going to make you money, and we're going to make sure. Well, I mean, that is of course what you're after at that moment in time, but at the same time we're going to enrich the customer profiles and bring you that nuggets of information.
Exactly. And it helps them to start to recognize the benefits of the approach, and therefore changes the marketing conversation, it changes the technology conversation, changes the data conversation. And what we're seeing so far is that there's the tangible benefits, but then there's just the organizational transformation benefits of seeing technology not be a difficult, challenging, more work, and becoming something that enables success. And that organizational transformation has been as much fun as the technology one.
Yeah, that makes sense. And what are the challenges that you're encountering when you're talking to restaurant brands and you're pitching this approach and your solutions? Are there any objections that come up?
I think inertia is probably the biggest one. Status quo. That'll be hard to implement. Yeah. We don't work that way. That'll take time. It's on the roadmap. We have another program to do first. So it's less that doesn't sound good or we wouldn't use that. It's more, wow, there's so much to organize. How do we have to do this first? Or we'd have to organize this supplier who's really slow and we've already got a backlog with them. It's that kind of thing that we run into rather than I don't like the sound of that.
Yeah. So it's a combination of the fact that brands are all over the place with regard to priorities.
Yep.
Kind of like, well, the priorities might be identified, but it was kind of like in COVID as well, during COVID as well. Like, we need to do this, we need to jump into this, everything seems to be important. There's only so many resources available, either internally or money-wise to give to other vendors.
But also, Alex, I mean, you know as well as I do you focus on menu optimization or the drive-through experience or Christmas bookings or personalization?
Yeah. So where does this all fit in the whole universe of things that I can implement to improve?
No, yeah. Exactly.
And what are kind of like the things or the techniques that you then use to convince the operator to go with you?
So we take a very gentle approach. We try to use data. We try to use stories, narrative. We try to explain the little effort that we'll take most of the pain on. If you open up your data and introduce us to your vendors, we'll take care of most of the organization. I think we're not under any VC pressure or anything. We're bootstrapped. We're working with some wonderful customers who are great customers of business. So we're not feeling desperate to go out and put pressure on people. We just, hard sell is probably not in our DNA. It's much more how to build a relationship. Let's start with something.
Yeah.
We don't have to do everything at once. Why don't we start with some social campaigns? Why don't we start with, some fingerprint technology on your current websites to encourage people who were planning to leave the page to book? Or why don't we think about how do we help you to sell some more gift cards? Because we're focused on knowing the guest and executing against it, you don't have to do everything at once. It doesn't have to be the whole package. It can be a small part of that to say, why don't you try this and just see if that starts to, push the flywheel. So
in a way,
long-term.
Yes. And in a way, this is also what you advise your customers to do with their customers, right? Collect data, build a relationship, take it, well, not necessarily.
Show some small value.
Yeah.
Show that if you do this thing, some value, a bit more.
Value exchange. Exactly.
And so with our customers, implement something, and then you'll see that when you know more about your customers or your personalized experience, then you improve. And so we've had quite a few times we go, look, this piece of product will deliver 1%. This will deliver 1%, but 1, 2, 3, 4% on top line growth. That's a lot of. It adds up to a lot. So, I mean, back one thing that sticks with me, Alex, and then I'm going to have to run. But when I was doing a vending machine company, I met with somebody who became a key client right in the beginning when I was just on my own and selling our first contracts. And when we finally signed him 7 years later, I said, why? I said, Clive, why did it take so long? He said, but I told you we would sign up, Carey. I don't know why you're in such a rush. Anyway.
Yeah. It's life teaches you patience is
indeed, and it's not a natural one for me, Alex. I'm not naturally patient, but I have to force myself to go, look, we're doing some good stuff. We're making good
potential entrepreneur. As an entrepreneur, it's patience is difficult, but it pays off in the end. This was very insightful. Thanks a lot, Carey. And I also got some ideas of applications of this personalization. It's really, really, really good, really interesting. So thank you very much.